This ship has been really hard to work out. Today we're looking at Harbin, the Tier 8 Pan-Asian cruiser. Although the HP and firing range is shockingly low, and the armour might as well be handcrafted from spam tins, it's fully equipped to achieve great results in the right situation. In this video, we're going to be running through the ship's characteristics, show you my build, then showcase a game where we discuss how to play it alongside its strengths and weaknesses. Starting off, Harbin gets a nice upgrade with 10 130mm guns, reloading every 5.5 seconds with a 7% fire chance, giving it a solid DPM. Unfortunately, you have only got 22mm of HE pen, so superstructure spamming and fires will have to suffice, plus the firing range, especially with tier 10 matchmaking, is brutal. One thing that does make the ship more bearable is the massive upgrade Harbin gets to torpedoes. This move up the line gives you double the output, with 6 per side, and since they are deep water, they benefit from additional stealth and some pretty spicy damage. Those attributes, paired with the 11km range, means that torpedoes are viable, but they do tend to rely on ships needing to push you. Even so, that range is still very good because Harbin also has some great concealment. Whilst running a full stealth build, that's going to give you a range of 9.5km, so you can easily stealth torp. However, with the awful main battery range, this concealment is essential. For the armour, as I said earlier, it is pretty dog and what you'd expect from a light cruiser. The bow is overmatchable by a lot of ships that you're going to face, which on its own isn't an issue, but the high-sitting citadel behind it is. Alongside that, it also spans an uncomfortable length of the ship, so you're going to find your health vanishing very quickly once you are spotted. So again, that concealment is essential. The one good thing about the ship is, apart from the citadel, if you are hit, there is a pretty good chance those shells are going to overpen you. And with all that in mind, this is where the consumables come in. They are pretty much vital for staying alive. You have got the standard damage control party, a fast action smokescreen which should be used sporadically, but in most games it will save your life, defensive AA, and finally a torpedo reload booster, which is amazing when you're engaging targets at short range. Finally, the anti-air is pretty good too. You've got a 6km range, fire 4 flak explosions per salvo, and overall have some great DPS, which gets bolstered by the defensive AA consumable. Although it won't stop squadrons all the time, I have found that it is powerful enough to repel air attack even from some tier 10 carriers. With the overview covered, we'll move on to the game and start by looking at my build. The commander has a last stand, pyrotechnician, adrenaline rush, concealment expert, swift fish, superintendent, and finally enhanced torpedo explosive charge. I'll be spending the remaining 4 points on fill the tubes and consumables enhancements, but for the 2 and 3 point skills, these can be in any order you wish, or swapped out with personal preferences such as priority target. As for the upgrades, we've gone for a standard main armaments, damage control, aiming systems, propulsion, and concealment. And with our build covered, we are now in game. The map is hotspot, as you can see by the massive volcano over there, in a tier 9 game, so middle tier, which is quite nice to have for the matchmaking, and I've got to say this is the best game I've had so far, and I believe it currently holds the number 5 spot for the max damage on the EU server. I mean, I've blurred the figure out to save that for the end, but you can see the type of result we're going to get in this game, which I'm quite happy with. But you'll just generally see how I play the ship, and possibly you can understand how to play it too if you're not too familiar with this ship or the Lion. Now we're starting off by going towards the A cap, and we've got a pretty sizable force behind us, so the Z-46 going in, and we have just been spotted. Thankfully it is a French destroyer, so they can be spotted by the moon, and we start opening fire with a lot of lead because French destroyers are known to be very quick. And we do manage to get some hits, get some defended, and I've got to say that Borodino could have absolutely devastated us, but we got very lucky there and only lost about 3,000 HP, opposed to the 23,000 we could have lost if it got a couple of citadels, so definitely quite nice. Now, at the moment, with the amount of ships we've got on this side, it's just a fact of just really pushing through, making sure this destroyer goes away whilst ours caps, and then just knocking out all of the opposition, and again, we've got a pretty sizable force, so that's what we're going to use to our advantage. Now, in terms of the smokescreen, which you can see I'm using at the moment, I mean, I just wanted that just to get out of the way because I didn't want to take any more shots from the Borodino because there's a good chance I'll probably be knocked out at that point if they get some good shots. But with how you use the smokescreen, and generally any smokes that last a good amount of time for the action time, is you want to go at 1/4 speed whilst moving, because at that point you can continue to move whilst being constantly covered by the smoke, which is going to be very good, and sort of learn why, especially in this line, because it allows you to advance further in your position whilst sort of maintaining fire. But unfortunately we have just been radared, so at that point it's time to panic, because you can see the Borodino is looking at us, but there's also a chance they could also be looking at our Z-46. So with this ship, the Lion, well, I guess the Lion in general, I've got to say I do think it has got a very high skill floor, because it takes quite a while to understand. I mean, my first, I think, 20 or 30 games, the wargaming gods must have smited me or something, because I had some of the worst luck in this ship. I just wasn't understanding it, and honestly, I was really hating it until I just sort of hit a turning point where I started understanding how you actually play this ship, and generally how we probably should be playing the rest of the line. I'm assuming that Sejong and Jinan are going to be similar, because that seems to be where this line's going. But this ship, what I've worked out so far is you need to be hyper aggressive, because as you can see, 13.5 kilometers range is very limiting. Thankfully we have got the Italian and Borodino in our range, and you can also see the low caliber of the guns that we're getting non-penetration. So as I said earlier, you have to rely on fires, and at the moment that's what we're doing, and plus we can't see it, so we are just blind firing. But you've got to be hyper aggressive, because the main battery range, it doesn't allow you to do much unless you are at close range. You know, you've got a decent reload, and plus once you start getting the other bonuses such as adrenaline rush coming in, then that's where it's going to help out. But you do need to get quite close, and that's where that smoke comes in. So if you are pushing towards a point and then at that point you're spotted, or you know you're going to be spotted quite soon, go down to 1/4 speed, start popping your, also we did manage to get the kill on the Borodino, and at that point it's just a fact of just get as close as you can and then start positioning yourself to go away. Now we are fast forwarding here because the next couple of minutes was just capping that point and just doing a bit of manoeuvring, and we have now been sort of caught out in the open by an enemy Harbin. So this is going to be an interesting match, because we both got the same amount of HP and we're both smoking up at the same time, so now it's just a fact of, okay, let's see who does what. Now, because the Harbin did not fire at us at all there, I'm going to assume they have just launched some torpedoes at us, and this is what I was talking about just a few seconds ago. It's just going at 1/4 speed just to slowly advance the smoke, and plus, if they've already fired torpedoes, if I continue to move, they are not going to be hitting me, because, well, I'm going to be further ahead to where they fired from my previous position, unless they did counter that in as well, and at that point, I'm going to be knocked out. I did also send some torpedoes there as well, but you can see where they are. The ones on the right, they're definitely going to miss, and then the ones on the left, there's just a chance they might hit. Now do just go out a second just so I can get some information for spotting, and I noticed that the Sejong is there. That is the tier 9 in this line, which I'm really looking forward to, and we'll be doing a subsequent video, so if you're not subscribed already, then make sure to subscribe if you want to see that video too. But yeah, here we go. It appears that they had actually fired for where we were going to be, but we do get very lucky there, as there was just a nice Harbin-sized gap between those torpedoes, but the enemy Harbin, however, was very unlucky. Now that does get us on to the next point, which, I mean, of course, the gun, as I say, the guns, they're good, but they are very limiting with the range, but in terms of torpedoes, they are pretty amazing too. So, of course, you've got 6 on each side, and you have got the torpedo reload booster, and I'm assuming those were the Sejong's torpedoes that just came through. But the torpedoes, again, the range of them, it's not the best, but they can be amazing, especially when you utilize them as much as possible. So the way I like to use them is just as soon as they're reloaded and we're in a sort of good distance, or you see like there's like a bottleneck or an opening or something, just fire them. If you think, oh, there's maybe a ship goes through that gap, just fire them through. They're going to be reloaded, and if you do get caught out by surprise, you know, something goes, oh no, they're, you know, very close, that's why you've got the reload booster. You can pop that few seconds and you've got another set ready and waiting. And at that point, if you do start firing them, you know, eventually it's just a fact of you throw enough of them, eventually you are going to start hitting some, and at this point I think I've got about 60 games, and pretty much every single game I will always get 1 or 2 hits at least, and sometimes you're very lucky. I mean, the clip I'm going to put on screen at the moment, I got very lucky where I had this, I think it was a Georgia that just blundered in and took all my torpedoes, which is very nice, and you will sometimes have games like that. Now, I am speccing primarily for torpedoes for my command build. I mean, I've seen some people are going more for reload for the Jinan, but I mean, I'm really liking the torpedoes, and honestly, when you do get some games where everything's coming towards you, I mean, this is also one of those games, but unfortunately not at the ranges which are too good for us. It just makes it incredibly fun. Now, I did also notice there's the Le Table. I mean, I wasn't particularly looking at the map there as I was very zoomed in on that Tazuma, but As you can see, those torpedoes are going to miss, but it's just the fact of getting into the habit of just using your torpedoes instead of going, oh, I probably won't hit it. Just chuck them down a gap or just chuck them where you think someone's going to be. And there's a good chance you might get 1 or 2 hits, and they do a load of damage, so they can really bolster up your damage numbers. Now, with our positioning, I mean, we're making the most of this, so we are next to an island at the moment, so we can just get back into cover. At the same time, we're able to start firing into the D-cap, whilst at the same time our team is going for, I believe that is the... oh no, is it the B-cap? Yeah, that's the B-cap, so our team is currently getting that, but they do appear to be getting reset by the enemy Sejong, which isn't the best, so... At this point I'm thinking, okay, so there's all these ships coming over here, I want to start getting forward and then get into a kiting position where I can really make the most of these guns, as well as the torpedoes, since they're going to be coming into them, and with a range, it's going to be there's going to be a pretty good chance we're going to hit some. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, might as well start building this FDG, and I mean, the time I was playing this, I think it was close to 1 AM, and it was my last game of the night, so it was definitely quite a nice one to finish on. But some of my decisions, you'll see some of my reactions are a lot slower than they usually are that you'll see in my other videos. Now, we do get quite lucky, we get a fire, and just continue on firing on this FDG whilst they turn out, and gonna let that burn. And already we are on 78,000 damage, which is quite nice. And you can see all these ships are very far out the map at the moment, and we do have somewhat of an advantage because we're about to get a 3rd cap, and at the same time we also have an advantage on points. In terms of ships, it is pretty much identical. The only difference is they do have the destroyer, which, you know, that they can play a massive role in games. And you can see the black was last spotted just over there in the I-8 line, so there's a good chance they're going to be coming over here soon as well. Now, again, here, this is where the limiting factor of the range is coming in, because you can see in some other ships, this would be like a perfect range to be spamming these guys at. You know, you've got enough time to maneuver, but in the Harbin, you're just not really able to do anything. So at this point, I'm like, well, okay, it looks like they're all going into the D-cap. I'm going to start moving forward just to see if I can actually start getting some shots on and hopefully get a bit more damage. And that fire we got onto the FDG, you'll see we're actually on 98,000 damage. Now, I did get spotted, so I'm assuming that's the black, and yeah, there they are on the map. So at that point I'm thinking, yeah, I just need to get into a smoke very quickly, otherwise some of these ships have got some rather large guns, and even though I'm nose on, they're going to be able to overmatch, and there's a chance I could get Citadel. Now, it took me a while, as I say, to react there, but here's the enemy black, so we do start firing, and that's the one thing with the deep water torpedoes, although they can do a load of damage, and you can hit cruisers, battleships, and aircraft carriers, you can't use them on destroyers, so you do have to use the main batteries, but again, these guns are perfectly equipped for dealing with destroyers. I mean, I can put another clip on screen now as well, where it was pretty much open season going forward to some destroyers, and it was very nice getting them at a close range. So if you do get close to destroyers, these guns are perfect. However, the one type of destroyer you do not want to get near to in any of this line are the German destroyers. I've been one-shot a couple of times, especially at these higher tier games. Some of those ships have literally, I've been at full HP, and they have pretty much one-shot me, or I think I probably had a little under full HP, but even so, I've been there and I've just watched as all my HP disappears, and I'm like, what just happened? So the German destroyers are a perfect counter, or at least the new destroyers anyway. The old ones, not so much, but they do still have hydro, so I guess they can still flush you out to your smoke. Now, whilst we have been talking about that, we've just been continuing to fire, managed to help out by knocking out that black and giving our Harbin some assistance, and now we're going to start firing onto this Musashi and hopefully get another fire, and we are currently on 122k, and it looks like we also got the Wither reward as well. Now, the Brandenburg is pushing in, and this is what I mean, it's just, I was trying to see the torpedoes, but follow the shells. If you just start chucking the torpedoes, you are going to start hitting them, and there we go, that was an example of that. We managed to get another one, got a flood, and we're up to 137k, which is really nice. Now, unfortunately, the advantage we had, that's slowly starting to disappear now, so you can see the North Carolina and the Rune they just haven't moved. They actually haven't moved at all on that top cap over there. The Roma appears to be going for a suicide run into the D-cap against the Musashi at Kansas. An FDG probably about to come around the corner and possibly some other things shooting at it. And as well as that, the Harlem is also dead. At this point, I could see, you know, the writing is pretty much on the wall. We're going to be losing. So yeah, there we go. The Brandenburg has just... Oh yeah, okay, so he also had the Brandenburg on him. The Brandenburg just managed to knock out the Roma, so at this point it's just like, I need to get out of here. I am out of smoke screens, even though I do have the Superintendent skill. I just need to get out of here and just farm as much damage as I can before I get knocked out. And that right there, that was the Rune getting knocked out by the Musashi, so now it is just me and the North Carolina. Now I can't actually see how much the NC's got, but I'm going to assume it's not too much. Yep, as the Azuma has just knocked them out, so it's now up to me to get to get 6 kills, which I really doubt is going to happen. So at this point I'm just like, right, okay, we're just going to dump torpedoes. We might get lucky. I mean, in hindsight, I really wish I hadn't just fired there, because I think I probably could have gotten a decent amount of hits if I was able to get into some sort of cover, but instead we're now open to pretty much every single battleship. But I'm like, oh, okay, actually, the Musashi's coming around, possibly get some torpedoes off. We do get some fires, but 156k, they do get their ray guns off, so we've got 6,000 HP, we're pretty much dead. So it is just a fact of maximising the damage, but there we go, Kansas shells coming in, and we get knocked out. Of course, that does mean we do get a defeat, but with 160,000 damage and just generally this results screen, I'm really quite happy to have this, and overall it just shows you that this is what is possible in Harbin, even though it is quite a hard ship to play. So, as I was saying before, you do need to be hyper-aggressive. It's just a fact of knowing where your limits are. So, for example, you can push up to be able to fire on stuff, but you need to be able to get out of there as well, so you just need to know where to push up, and then also how easy it is for you to get out of there once your smoke's starting to die off or the enemies are starting to push. So I'd just say just keep on playing it, and eventually it will become easy to play and you'll start getting some good results. Of course, this is the tier 8 and most people's goals it is to get to the tier 10, but if you do want to play this or just want to make the grind more enjoyable, then just keep on playing and eventually you will understand how to play it. Now, moving on to the team score, you can see there is a serious difference between me and the person below me. So the Roman managed to get 981 XP on a loss, and actually that's still really good, but 1,723 base XP on a loss. That's 3rd place for the winning team over there, so it just gives you an idea of how much we actually managed to do in this game, so definitely very happy with this result. I mean, I can't imagine what this would have been in a win, but it's probably going to be something similar to the Azuma. Now, on the detailed report, you can see that we managed to get a nice spread of damage on a lot of ships, rather than just farming one bad player, for example, which... it's still a way of getting damage, but it just shows you that this ship, it was more effective making the most of each situation provided, and that was just each ship that came towards us, so it just shows you that you can get a lot of damage in this, especially when you've got people pushing you. Now, if we break down how we got that damage, it is, as I said earlier, fires and superstructure farming. So for the actual main battery damage, 53,500, which is quite nice, 25k from torpedoes, so still, again, very nice there, 2 hits. But the majority of that was from fires and flooding, and 79.5 was from fires alone, so definitely worth investing in getting an additional fire chance. So I'm definitely quite happy that I've got pyrotechnician, because we may have gotten a much lower score if we didn't have that. But overall, it just shows you the amount of damage that these can do, given the right circumstances. With my regular games, sometimes I'll get as low as 50,000, but as an average I am getting between 70 and 100k. Now, with the battle results covered, that does move us on to our final point, which is the next video. If you've not seen it yet, I cover my first impressions of the tier 7 cruiser, Shumfon.